Hello, I'm Dave and this is Logan, out once again for a walk in the countryside. Thanks for joining us. Now today we're at the pretty village of Berwick St John. It's located about 5 miles east of Shaftesbury and 15 miles west of Salisbury. It's actually in southwest Wiltshire. We're not far from the Dorset border. And we're going to be walking a roughly 6.5 mile figure of 8-ish route. We'll have a wander through the village before heading south to check out the Iron Age hill fort at Winkelbury, before heading back north to Woodlands Down and then along the old Shaftesbury Drove track to White Sheet Hill for some fantastic views. And then we'll finally head back south, down Berwick Combe and back to the village. And hopefully we'll get to see some quite stunning views along the way. Now I'm filming in the middle of May. It is one of those glorious sunny late spring mornings. The sun is out, fair bit of blue sky, should be perfect conditions for walking. Do come along with us. Now I've still got a little bit of that laryngitis I've had for a couple of weeks. It's gradually going away, so hopefully it won't spoil the video too much for you. Well, the village name of Berwick St John gets its name from, well, the Berwick bit is Old English. Beer means barley and wick means farm. The St John bit, I guess, comes from the church, which we'll see shortly. The village name and the fact that there is a stream running through it suggests that it really became established in the Anglo-Saxon period. From about 955 AD it was part of Wilton Abbey's estate and it became its own separate parish in the 13th century. It passed to the crown after the dissolution of monasteries in the mid-16th century and was bought by a chap called Sir William Herbert, the first Earl of Pembroke. There have been numerous owners and land splits since. Okay, well, we'll start the walk with a little wander through the village. It's quite a small settlement, and we'll begin with looking at the church, which is just behind me here. And it's the church of St John. Now, there was a church in the village in or even before the 13th century, but the present church was originally built in the 14th century. In the 15th century, the upper part of the tower was added along with the north and south transepts. It was restored in 1827 when the galleries were added. By the mid-19th century it comprised of a chancel, nave, central tower, north and south transepts, a north chapel and a vestry. And it was almost entirely rebuilt between 1860 and 1862, retaining the 13th and 14th century style of most of the old parts of the church and the 15th century style of the tower. I think it's got 6 bells. Okay, well, we'll have a little peep inside. The first thing we can see is the octagonal font, which I believe is from the 19th century. And there's a terrific stained glass window just to the right of it. Beautiful. And just walking through the nave, another beautiful window on the right hand side there. It's lovely and cool in here. And there's a wooden pulpit from the early 20th century, I believe, and a couple of chapels. So I think this is the south chapel, another beautiful window and an effigy down below, Sir John Hussey from the 13th century. And over to the north chapel, again, another terrific stained glass window, a lot of heraldic shields, and another effigy down here, again from the 13th century, this time a chap, Sir Robert Lucy. And then finally into the chancel, And the window above the altar looks quite incredible in the morning sunshine, doesn't it? And where's the, there's the organ, just on the right hand side there, other side of that arch. But you know, I think my favourite window is that one right at the top, that cross. It's got a beautiful red colour to it, or different shades of red. And that very magnificent house just to the east of the church is the rectory, which dates from 1798. And just a little bit on from the church, the old school on the corner of the road here. I think it was built in 1835, enlarged in 1856 and again in 1871. But I think it closed as a school in 1963. And this is the Talbot Inn, which I believe dates from the 17th century. It was originally called the Grove Arms. Certainly it shows on a 1901 map as that, and then changed its name to the Talbot Inn in 1903. Sadly, I think it's temporarily closed pending change of ownership. I'm not 100% sure. And on the other side of the road from the pub is the old Methodist chapel, built in 1875 and closed in the mid-1960s. There was a Baptist chapel once at the other end of the village. That was built in 1828, but I think that closed in the mid-1980s. Okay, well, we're now going to start heading out into the countryside, initially heading south. We've just passed through Easton Farm. I think there are something like 5 working farms still in the village. I should also mention the Berwick St John Country Fair. It's a biennial event. I think the next one is this September 2024, and it has, you know, classic cars, steam engines and bars selling cider. Sounds like an event worth going to. So this public footpath that we're on now takes us across a field between Easton Farm and there's Chapel Farm, and then we start heading south, and this is our first sighting of our next destination. Well folks, we've got to climb to the top of that hill. Well, we've made our way through Chapel Farm, so we're going to continue heading, I suppose, southeast just a little bit. Then we're going to pick up this track that's going to head us southwards. And there is our next destination, Winkelbury Hill. And when we get to the top of that, there's an Iron Age hill fort to explore. For our first pit stop of the day to take in a view, and this is looking to the north. And I think that valley down there is called Eastern Hollow. But oh, this really is quite glorious. I say, a lot of the fields look as though they've been cut already, their first cut of hay. Well folks, we've made it to the top of Winkelbury Hill, and the views around here are amazing. The Iron Age hill fort's just behind you, and I'll show you that very shortly, but let me just show you some of these views. So we've got the Iron Age hill fort that's just on our right. Now, incredibly, we're not even halfway around the walk yet, because we will be eventually heading downhill, crossing the road that goes into Berwick St John, and then we'll be heading right up on top of that ridge in the very far distance, and then making our way along the top. So this bank and ditch in front of me here is the outer part of the Iron Age hill fort that covers something like 15 acres up here. And there might have been Bronze Age use before and Romano-British used afterwards, because, well, it does look a bit unfinished. And basically there's an oval enclosure about 382 yards long and 160 yards wide, and there's a single rampart and bank about 2.5 yards high with an outer ditch and 4 yards wide and 2 yards deep. And there's evidence of buildings and pits inside. It's thought that it's probably not entirely built for military purposes, probably more for social or territorial or economic factors. General Pitt Rivers excavated the site between 1881 and 1882, and a Saxon cemetery was discovered to the south of the fort, and there are a few barrows around here. Well, I'm now gradually making my way off Winkelbury Hill, following a footpath that sort of goes along the eastern side of it. It's a lot easier going downhill than going uphill. I had to keep Logan on a lead while we're up by the fort, because there are quite a lot of sheep around there. But this little section here, oh, it's gorgeous. There's wild garlic either side of a bank, and the footpath is going along a sort of sunken hollow. The smell is divine, and it's quite nice underneath all these shaded trees, because it's quite warm now. But fortunately, I've got plenty of water for myself and Logan. So we're now going to continue northwards. We'll come across a little road and then a farm. I think it's called Cross Farm, and then we're going to pick up a track that'll take us in a northeasterly direction. Well, another little update on the route. We've passed through Cross Farm and I'm on this restricted byway. I need to keep my eyes peeled. At some stage a footpath goes off to the northwest, and that's the footpath we need to follow. I was only on that little bit of road for a short bit of time, and this cyclist went by and he stopped and said hello. Lovely chap called Darren. He's a regular viewer to the channel, so hello to Darren. And as is now customary, he is now the proud owner of a limited edition Dave's Countryside Walks badge. Haha, that's the sign we're looking for. So we don't want to carry on to the right, which is the bridleway. We want to go left, which is a footpath. Still quite hazy. But I say that the grass just looks so lush and green still, because we've had so much rain, of course. Anyway, we now need to kick on. This is our second major ascent of the day, heading the footpath. We're now going on a sort of northwesterly direction. Well, we're now on what I hope will be our last uphill section. We'll say we're following a bridle way up the side of, I think it's called Woodlands Down, and there should be a lovely ridge at the top where again we should get some terrific views. Well, we're not quite at the top of the ridge there, but hey ho, let's a good excuse for another pit stop just to take in some of these views again. Well, what a perfect spot for a bench, and there's a really welcome warm wind up here, which is just perfect. The views, they're quite stunning. I think we might stay here for a little while. Well, just before we get up onto the top of the ridge and join the old Shaftesbury Drove, I want to show you this, well, it's a ditch and two banks, and it shows as a cross dike on a map. And it's got prehistoric origins. So there are two banks and a ditch, a line north to south. The west bank is about 5 yards wide, 1.5 yards high, and the east bank is about 4 yards wide and 1 yard high. And the ditch in between is about 7 yards wide and 3.5 yards deep, and it's known locally as Half Mile Ditch, and it basically marks the boundary between Berwick St John and Alvedeston. And this is where we come off that bridleway and join the old Shaftesbury Drove heading westwards, and it sits high above the damp valley bottom below. Its old name is Hillfort. Here is Anglo-Saxon for host or army, and possibly it might have been a military road used by King Alfred's army when they were fighting the Danes. Well, literally 25 yards off the path there's a trig point, but sadly it's on private land, and we'll have to bag it virtually from here. Well, just on the side of the drove in front of me here, well, just in front of those trees, there's a barrow. It's called Long Barrow on the map, and it's Neolithic. It's about 42 yards long, 23 yards wide, 2 yards high, with a ditch around it. But quite typical to have them sort of set up high on a ridge. Now, slightly older viewers might remember Jack Hargreaves and his out-of-town television series produced over 40 years ago. And in one of his episodes, he filmed himself coming along this very track, the old Shaftesbury Drove, on a pony and track. I think it was pulled by his old pony Blue. You can still see the video, I think, on a YouTube channel today. Oh, I'm so glad I found this. Now, this is the White Sheet Hill milestone, and so it's literally a few yards to the south of the old Shaftesbury Drove road, of course, which was the Shaftesbury to Salisbury coach road in years gone by. And in fact, Jack mentioned it in his episode. Now, the writing's quite difficult to read on the other side, but I think it says something like 97 miles from Hyde Park Corner and 14 miles from Salisbury, and there's a date of 1756. although I think actually it's about 108 miles to Hyde Park Corner by car today. Well, now that we've met the milestone, this is the point where we say goodbye to the Shaftesbury Drove. We now start heading southwards back to the village on the return journey. And initially we'll be going round Berwick Combe. Well, we haven't had a pit stop for a while to look at the views, so let's sort that out now. Well, you can see that bridleway that we came up. Well, I tell you what, folks, these views, they just keep on coming. So this is where we've come along. The Shaftesbury Drove is on the other side of that ridge, and we're basically following the side of a combe. I think it's called Berwick Combe. It looks like somebody's just come along and carved out this bowl. It really is. Oh, it's difficult to describe, really. Well, we're very much in the final stages of our route now, just following a footpath along the side of a field, downhill, and that'll take us back to the village and our car. Well, just before we finish the walk, I thought I'd make a tiny little detour to have a look at this quite extraordinary building. It's a few yards off the public footpath, but I have seen a few other folk come up and have a look at it up close, so I'm sure they won't mind if we have a quick look. And as you can see, well, it's actually a folly, a tower attached to an arch with a staircase to an upper room and a roof. It's actually been built as recently as the 1960s, and it's been made from reclaimed stone from a nearby house that had been demolished. And believe it or not, it's actually been repaired in 1979, but I can find very little information about it. I mean, presumably it's got some sort of connection with the estate. Well, shall we have a quick peep inside? There's no sort of sign saying private, so, well, if I'm not supposed to be here, then I apologise. All right, looks like some little stairs to go up. Oh, just enough room. And what have we got up here? Oh, so a couple of little seats and a fireplace. Wow. Presumably, oh look, there's some sort of painting on the tiling on the floor. And I love the little wooden shutters by the window. Beautiful view looking to the north. Wow. And then look at this tiny little window here. And this is looking to the south. And then, well, looks so you can go a little bit higher up, but I don't think I'll take my chances. What a delightful little place. What an extraordinary little place that folly was. As I say, there were no signs that said private or keep out or anything to suggest that you couldn't have a look at it. But if you're not allowed to look at it, then I apologise. A nice way to end the walk, with a relaxing dabble along the stream with some lovely fresh water to drink. I think you're quite happy there, aren't you, fella? Come on then. This way. Good boy. Well folks, we've come to the end of the video. We thought we'd do the end scene here on the side of Winkelbury Hill with some quite gorgeous scenery behind us. We hope you enjoyed the walk today. If you did, please do give us a thumbs up and a like, and do leave a comment, and do check out our Facebook page, Dave's Countryside Walks. We've had a super walk today. No pub, unfortunately, but I tell you, the landscape views have been out of this world. His lordship's having a little snooze. So until we meet again, thanks for watching, and cheerio. I don't know, talk about sleeping on the job.